おいで、やっぱりここへおらしてもらえますか。
わかったき離れ、暑苦しい。なんじゃ今のは。
Hello, everybody. Hear the news gather round. It's Shack Out Back once again. Can't use that song.
Can't use that song. We're going to be copyright claimed, and we can't say episode titles anymore because Jim had
the episode titles.
Idea.
I made the executive decision. I was tired of listening to Dan and ah about what episode it was. And listening to all the people go, should we listen to episode 1? And now there are no numbers. This is the godless realm of Shack Out Back. There are no numbers for you to follow.
I think it looks better. I think it works better. I also think it is more aesthetically pleasing than having a huge long-running title. So my opinion, it's better.
This is In the Corner of the World versus Grave of the Fireflies, The Sad Down.
Yeah, this is going to be a sad down. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Grave of the Fireflies and In This Corner of the World, because I really, really enjoy that movie.
Like every week, this is Shack Out Back. I'm Jimba at Popeye Birkin. Who's the other guy?
I'm Danny at Markle Danny. Please follow me. I have 38 followers, please.
I only got like 12, so follow me too. I'm less popular than Dan.
True.
What's our Shack Out Back Twitter?
It's at Shack Out Back Pod. I really wish there was a way to make it shorter or more pleasing, but the fucking woman who has Shack Out Back is not alive anymore, I think, according to her Twitter. She's just a ghost in the machine.
Make it SOB, son of a bitch.
I've tried to do that too, I know, right? Because it's such a nice, catchy thing, but obviously it's taken. I'll keep messing around with it, but it's probably going to stay at Shack Out Back Pod. That's not horrible. It's just a little bit long.
And we've done a bit of different stuff. We talk about new stuff every week, so I thought of taking the numbers off as we described. So if you have friends and you're like, listen to these idiots talk, just say, hey, what are you interested in? And like,
watch
do like the
whatever
camping
episode.
one or whatever the fuck you want to listen to. I'm sure there are a lot of Parapod fans out there in the world, so you might want to start with that one.
Yeah. Tons of Parapod fans. All 10 Parapod fans are gnawing at the teeth to listen to that episode of another podcast.
It's a popular podcast, bro.
I'm glad. But I think removing the numbers was 100% the best solution. But let's get into it, Jim. Tell me what you've been doing these last 2 weeks. Give me the lowdown.
The bi-weekist breakdown. We've been about 2 weeks since we last talked. I'm sure I've listened. I'm sure I've watched and done more stuff than this. But this is a little Jim list. Jim's been doing other stuff. I watched Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. It's
the
about
Epic Gamer movie, nice.
Yeah, him being an NPC in GTA 5. I think it was good. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was going to be shitty, but it was not shitty, and it was good. I played all of SteamWorld Dig 2, because I got it for
free.
free.
Beat it? That's good.
Because Dan told me to get it, and it was good. It's kind of one of those games that leaves me wanting more. Like, I wish there was more to it, but like that's not a bad thing for a video game to leave you with. I've been playing to much of Dan's chagrin. I've been playing lots of Fallout New Vegas. I put some new mods on. I've been helping people in Fallout New Vegas and running around shooting men in the head. It's been fun. I watched the first 2 seasons of What We Do in the Shadows, which is the show adaptation of the vampire film by Taika Waititi. I read my book Bel Canto, which my friend got me for Christmas, about a bunch of Stockholm syndromed like hostages in a big mansion. It's pretty good so far. And then me and Dan.
I was going to say, you better.
And all the boys.
Yeah, I thought you weren't going to mention this, and I was like, Jim, how dare you?
I went over to Dan's, and we were looking for something to watch, and I was like, let's watch this. Well, I don't know who said it, but we came upon it, and we were like, yes.
I don't know who said it. It just kind of happened. We had a collective thought.
Me and Dan and Cassie and Patrick, we all love Joey King. She's our favorite actress. She's the star-studded star who starred in Wish Upon. So we wanted to find another shitty-ass Joey King film. So we watched The Kissing Booth, which is still the better of the films.
The Kissing Booth trilogy.
Yes, we watched the KCU, the Kissing Booth Cinematic Universe.
So many
We watched
movies.
Kissing Booth 1, 2, and 3. And I think Kissing Booth is still my favorite in terms of, like, being fucking weird and nonsensical.
In terms of being horrendous and disgusting, they really toned it down because they were like, after that first movie of all these this underage woman getting molested and then apparently liking it, we really had to tone it down for more wide audiences.
We also watched The Tall Girl yesterday. We got everyone on Netflix Teleplay, and we watched The Tall Girl. And as Brandon said, Brandon was doing art the entire time we were watching it. It's kind of like a nothing film that was funny bad, but like I immediately forgot most of everything
instantly.
about it.
I woke up the next morning and I didn't remember a thing. The tall girl faded from my mind.
We gotta watch Tall Girl too. I just remember like there's some fucking like ding dang freaking creepy nerd who didn't have like a backpack the entire film and was carrying his stuff around in a crate. And right before it happened, Dan's like, "Oh my god, you know why he was carrying around that crate? So he could kiss the tall girl." And guess what? Guess what happened at the end of that film? Spoilers, everyone.
Spoilers for Tall Girl. He kissed said tall girl.
It was fucking disgusting. What a horrid film.
The entire movie is just interesting because I don't know how you'd pitch that to a studio other than just saying she's tall and gets bullied. Like, there's nothing deeper than that.
In that film, she has like $1 billion. She has all these boys fawning over her, and then she's like, "My life sucks. I hate myself." And I'm like, "Shut up."
Tall people. We should all castrate them.
What was I going to say? Also, I'm going to tell the story that I just told Dan, where today I went out with Jaden and I went to Grooves, which is one of the local like record shops in London. And I was just booling around and I bought a $2 cassette tape on a whim. And then I went to lunch and I opened it up and it had my friend's dad's name on it and a date that was like the mid-90s. And I called my friend. I was like, "Is this your dad's name?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's his tape." And that was so fucking weird.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what happened to me the last 2 weeks. What about you, Dan? What about you? Bi-weekest breakdown.
What about me? Me and Jim had the pleasure of playing a session of Grounded because it had a free weekend. And
Grounded was good.
Yeah, we will. It's exactly what we wanted The Forest to be, but made by a much larger studio, so I can't blame them. But Grounded is way more my style, and I like the thematic choices of it, and I really, really like how creative it is with all the crafting and everything. So we'll get it when it's on sale, and I'm sure it'll be an episode eventually too.
It's like The Forest, but not intensely shitty.
Yep, Jim hates people from Vancouver making indie games, making darling indie games.
Darling.
We played Grounded, we watched the Joey King movies. I started watching an anime called Ranking of Kings, which is absolutely phenomenal. I'm really sad because I'm caught up weekly to it now. There's only like 5 or 6 more weeks of it, but I like grinded out 18 or 19 episodes in like a couple days because it was insanely good. I've been working a lot because the one girl that I work with needed some Saturdays off, so it's been kind of rough the last 3 weeks. I've had just one day off and then all days on again, so I'm looking forward to this weekend when I have more than one day off at a single time. And
you don't spend it with that greasy bastard Jim.
Yeah, Jim's been around. Jim's been eating all my food. Jim's been drinking all my water. Jim's been dumping crumbs into my couch cushions.
All that is false, except for the water, and I do drop a lot of crumbs.
Oh, it's okay. Jim hoovers them back up. And I pre-ordered Elden Ring. Don't do what I did, though. I pre-ordered it because my internet's not good, and I'll need to pre-download it, or else I will not play.
I'm part of House Biscuit. We do not pre-order.
Jim's part of Fort Biscus.
Fort Biscus.
That's about it. I've just been watching a lot of anime. I've been getting really back into, like, seasonal stuff that I missed from last year and, like, winter of this year that I was getting caught up on. And just kind of enjoying myself. Me and Cass started the new season of Snowpiercer too, which is very good.
Is that good? You like the first season?
I like it a lot. Yeah, it's 3 seasons now. Like, I like the first season a lot, and the second season, and the third season is really nice too so far. And it's weekly, which is good. I don't like when Netflix lumps out like an entire season of a show instantly. There's
something else that you listen to that we get the listeners got a preview of at the end of last episode of your hot takes on it.
I listened to the fucking, what's it called? The 81 Archive podcast.
Archive 81, bro.
Archive 81, shut up. Archive 81 podcast. I listened to all the first season and then like an episode or 2 of the second season. And, good on them. They did a podcast and they obviously got bought out by Netflix or something because it kind of looks like they just stopped doing it from what I can tell on their Patreon or anything. Again, good on them because it was probably a lot of work, but yeah, I don't like it in the slightest. I think it's kind of shit. Yeah, I don't want to be mean, but I think it's not good. Like, I don't know. It's really, I don't know. It's like for someone, it's really quick and bite-sized episodes. At least the first season is. They're like 14 minutes apiece, but it flies.
It's for sitting on your lawn tractor and listening to noise in your ear. That's what it's for.
Like, it just flies at such a pace where you can't get used to anyone and no one has personality, and the personality they do have is like drivel. I did not like it. I didn't enjoy it at all. That's my review of 81 Archive or whatever the hell it's called.
Watch
podcast.
Archive 81 on Netflix. It's
Yeah,
good.
just watch it on Netflix.
But moving on, today we're doing a sad down. Dan picked 2 fucking World War II films about people dying and living in poverty and horribleness.
Happy episode.
So it'll be a good, fun time. So which film did you want to talk about? Do you want to compare and contrast them, or because we watched in this corner of the world and Grave of the Fireflies for this week?
Yeah. So In This Corner of the World is a 2016 film, and Grave of the Fireflies. I didn't realize how old it was. It's 1988. Yeah, I didn't know it was that old. I want to go through probably one and then the other one, just because I think they handle the tone a lot differently. But yeah, both of them are generally about World War II in Japan. Grave of the Fireflies is a hell of a lot more dark, at least in my opinion. It's more in your face with it.
Yeah, I'd say it's more in your face with it. Do you want to talk about Grave of the Fireflies first?
Yeah, let's do Grave of the Fireflies first. So Grave of the Fireflies is a Studio Ghibli movie, which is another huge, this is when they still did horrendously dark and sad movies. Now they're more known for, happy kids movies and stuff, yeah. But beautifully animated, looks really good. Really, really nice voice acting. I think Jim listened to the English dub, if I remember.
Grave of the Fireflies?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you listened to the Japanese version?
Yeah.
Sweet, yeah. Really good voice acting, really good subtitles and everything of it. Everyone sounds really good. But did you like Grave of the Fireflies?
I didn't like it as much as in This Corner of the World.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But I think some of the few things that stood out to me when watching this film, right? One was the audio, because I don't know if it's because it's an older film, it's 20 years older than In This Corner of the World, but the audio felt very grainy and dirty, almost like they really recorded outside and did a lot of this stuff not in a studio and stuff like that.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I like the aesthetics of the film too, but I don't like them as much as In This Corner of the World. I feel like Grave of the Fireflies was so relentless with the bad shit that was happening.
Yeah, it's go from minute one. You get no time from the start of the movie, and it's just this is horrible, this is horrible, this is horrible. Okay, now they're dead.
So it follows 2 young people. It's Sieta, which is the main character.
Yeah, he's the older brother.
And Setsuko, which is his younger sister, who's probably less than 10, probably 7.
Yeah, she's young.
And so they live in a house with their mother, and then the whole neighborhood gets firebombed, which I didn't know that happened in World War II, and it also happened in This Corner of the World.
Hellish. What a fucking hellish thing to have happen.
Yeah, the U.S. literally dropped burning rods on villages and neighborhoods.
Just drop burning
burn
pieces of
down.
paper on people's houses. It has no strategic effect. It's just for demoralization.
Yep. And their mother dies, and they lose their house, and they have to go live with their aunt, and then they end up homeless because he just gives up living with his aunt because she's a huge asshole. And then his sister dies, and then he dies in a fucking train station. So it's a very happy-go-lucky film.
It's minute one, you're smiling, big laughs all around you, and the boys are eating pretzels, watching this film, smacking your knees out of laughter.
I was drinking. I just watched this a couple hours ago, so I was drinking a couple glasses of wine and eating corn nuts while watching it, and I was like, "This is kind of disrespectful. Just eat a big bag of corn nuts as I watch this film."
Jim's eating a bunch of Japanese imported corn nuts.
Yeah, I was eating a bunch of Japanese children bones as I watched the film.
But I wanted to touch on the fact that this movie is, from minute one, it's not a story about how they're surviving. From minute one, it's okay, well, they're already dead, and here's their bodies. Here's basically what led up to them dying.
You don't know at the beginning.
You don't know, yeah.
The beginning of the film is the characters are different characters in the scene are talking about we can't let the Americans see all these fucking dying orphans in the train station.
Yeah.
And the main character is sitting there with his sister's ashes, and then you don't know this
again. You don't know that either.
And then the dude picks up the ashes, and he's like, "What's this?" Just chucks them in the fucking brush.
Yeah, it's in a little candy jar thing, so it's just garbage to him. And the movie starts, right after that, and it's okay, well, that's gonna set the tone for the entire movie.
I feel like there are moments of levity in this film, but they're always undercut with something bad happening.
Oh, yeah. It's not a good movie. They don't have any big W's. They don't have any winner chicken dinner moments in this movie.
They don't have any epic wins. Just
they don't have any
fails.
epic wins. So one of the high points of this movie is when they eventually do run away from their aunt, and they're in, what are they staying in? A little
in a
bomb
cave
shelter type of thing.
It's a fucking cave, bro.
It's a cave. Civilized folk call it a bomb shelter. It's like a little hollowed out piece of a hill. But they're staying in that, and the older brother, Seta, has the smart idea, let's go get fireflies to, like, light up the cave. And that's, like, the happiest they are in the entire film.
Yeah, he talks about how he saw, like, his dad, like, on a bunch of boats, and all the boats in the Armada, like, going into the bay when the war started. And it's just like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, it's the next day, and he goes off to get something, comes back, and she's just, like, shoveling dozens and dozens of dead fireflies into, like, a grave that they all killed by keeping them in their fucking house.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. But
foreshadowing
movie,
too.
Yeah, foreshadowing 100%.
Because she says, why can't fireflies live longer or some shit like that? I'm like, oh, you're dead. You're dying, bro.
Jim points at the screen, he stands up, he says, you will die, and then he sits back down. Yeah, Grave of the Fireflies compared to In This Corner of the World is a lot more gruesome in how it depicts war, just because you're in one of the cities that is being affected a lot more, yeah.
I don't think it's more gruesome.
No.
It's definitely, I think it's more, I wouldn't say realistic. It's more gritty and, like, negative.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's more gruesome. I think more gruesome shit happens in This Corner of the World.
You think so? Yeah.
The only gruesome thing that happens is that he finds his mother in the hospital, and she's, like, horribly burned, but you don't see her because she's covered in bandages. And then there's, like, one cutaway where the little girl's shoveling all the fucking dead fireflies into the grave, like in the latter half of the film. She's like, I know mom's dead, and you just see like a 3-second shot of her fucking corpse being thrown in a big pit of bodies. So that's the only gruesome thing that really happens in this film.
This movie, to me, is a lot more about, like, the loss of innocence and stuff, especially with the younger sister. Like, the older brother knows everything that's going on, and he figures out all the shit that's going on. He knows how horrendous it is. But he keeps trying to protect his younger sister from seeing any part of it.
Yeah.
Until it's way too late for her to realize that it's a hellscape they're living in. It's not just like they ran away from home. It's like, yeah, they're going to die and there's like nothing you can really do.
It's very, I think that the main thing that stands out about these two films is how different Japanese culture is to Western culture.
Yeah.
Because a lot of like what both of these films have stemmed from is like family conflict and like dealing with families and stuff like that, because they both follow people who aren't fighting in the war or are soldiers or anything really. They're just following like kids and women and families who like are just affected by wartime. And it really showed in this film too that like he was just pissed off at his aunt, so he went and lived in a hollowed out mud hole. And then the guy they were buying food from, when they started begging for food, he's just like, just go and make amends with your aunt and go live with her again.
That's the thing. This movie's tough to watch because it's like, dude, your aunt might be a dickhead, but like you're dying. You're literally dying. Just go and get on your knees and grovel to her. But
I thought it was also odd that like his sister died and he didn't die when they both obviously had malnutrition. She must have like,
she's younger.
She must have like gave up on life or living or something, because they're eating and he's forcing her to eat and shit, but like she just like dies. She just like gives up. I thought
sometimes
you
just die. Sometimes you just give up and just die while eating.
I don't want to say that this film was as realistic as In This Corner of the World either, because I feel like a lot of things came together to kind of make this plot happen. Because I know there are orphans displaced by war and stuff, but it's like they live in a cave and it has like these whimsical elements. It has almost to it
fantasy elements of like a child's dream. Like they run away and they live together with no adults supervising them, and they live in the cave and they had candy for a while at first, and you can eat all the candy, and then it runs out. That's
very Ghibli, right?
Like 100%. You can still feel it through, yeah.
What are some of your standout features of this film, Dan? Because this is the first time I've watched it. Have you watched it before this?
I watched it once before this, and then I watched bits and pieces of it for this, and I watched a couple YouTube videos from creators that I like. But I really like how this movie looks, and I wish it got a better... Just like you said, the audio is kind of, not tinny, but just grainy. I wish it got a nice like Blu-ray like remaster with everything really nice looking on it.
To go away from what you said, because I disagree, Dan, I feel like the audio in this film, because it's so like grainy and gritty and shitty, I think it matches the kind of
it adds to it, yeah,
domesticity and the like very singular nature of the film, with these characters living together and like dealing with all this bullshit together and just like living in this small town. I think it adds to it, but it definitely, I don't know if that's a feature because it was an older film, like an older Ghibli film.
You think it was conscious?
It might have been. Like,
Yeah,
when did Studio Ghibli start making films?
I think that they've been around for a lot longer than this. I'll look it up, but I know they've been around for a hell of a long time. They probably did a lot of short animations and stuff.
Yeah. I think they started doing features in the 70s, where I don't know if like Japan had as much of really well-funded animation like sphere in their country that was like really big at the time. They were able to afford like really good recordings and shit like that, because it definitely shows that In This Corner of the World is a newer film, and it definitely feels like a more modern film in terms of production design and how well put together the film is. But I feel like all the elements of Grave of the Fireflies add to it, though, like the kind of like shitty audio and grittiness of it.
Yeah. 1984 was Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. I didn't know that was their first movie. Have you seen that, Nausicaa?
Movie? Yeah, I have it on DVD.
Yeah, Nausicaa's hella good. Apparently, yeah, I didn't know that. I thought A Castle in the Sky was their first movie, but Nausicaa was 2 years before that.
Oh, I thought Castle in the Sky was older. I thought it was like
me
in
too.
the 70s. Oh, that's weird.
Huh.
But I would say that people praise this film a lot, and I've heard a lot of stuff about this film before I went in and watched it, where I thought it was going to be a little more egregious in terms of like gore and bad stuff and shit. But
yeah.
I think it makes a good fine line between being too gratuitous and not. But I still like In This Corner of the World more, because I felt the characters in that more compelling. Maybe because I'm not a kid. Maybe it'd be
I
different
felt
if
In
watched
This Corner of
movie
the
when I was a
World
kid.
used its source material a lot more sparingly, which was good. Like, you didn't see some parts of the war for a long time because they lived in a town that wasn't really on the front lines. They lived in a town that was a, like a naval base town.
Yeah. In the Grave of the Fireflies is a lot more ambiguous as to what was going on in the war, because it starts out in 1945. So the war is almost done, like it's a few months from being done.
Yeah, so they're definitely orphans displaced then.
Yeah, and it just was like, I didn't really understand. In This Corner of the World gave me a better like idea of how Japanese society was going on during the war and like what they had to put up with and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Grave of the Fires is just more like ambiguous as to what was going on, because you didn't have like an outside view of like they weren't talking to characters who were like soldiers or like different families and shit like that. It was just them two through the entire film.
Yeah,
like it's just the main characters.
Yeah, so In This Corner of the World follows, it's a 2016 film about the same general idea, except it's focused mostly before the war and leading right up to the bomb dropping. And yeah, In This Corner of the World follows a character named Suzu, I believe is her name.
Yep.
And she is originally from Hiroshima, then moves to Kure, which is a military, like, seaside town, because she was put into, I guess you'd call it an arranged marriage? She didn't know the guy, so definitely an arranged marriage.
Like, guys it was like a bunch of scenes of her growing up that were just, like, interspersed. And then when she was 18, some dude just came to her house and were like, we want to marry this woman! And then they get married. But, like, also, at the beginning of this film, and I want to talk about this too, there was a scene where she was like a little girl and she got stuck in a basket of a monster with like her future
Jim's talking
husband.
about the monster husband.
What was that about? Like, why was there a basket monster in this film? It didn't really make sense.
I think, okay, maybe it's something I'm not getting. I think that was just her imagination. She said she was a really imaginative kid.
They saw him at the end, though, bro.
Okay, I don't know, man. Maybe it's some nuanced thing about kidnappings,
Japanese culture that we don't know.
Early Japanese war times and stuff. Maybe that's what it is. But I think it's just her imagination.
I think maybe it's because I'm more close to age to Suzu than the other two characters in Grave of Fireflies, but I found her a lot more relatable and, I wouldn't say easier, but a lot more comfortable of a main character for me to follow and understand like what she's feeling and what's going on.
Yeah,
and
me too.
She also had they didn't have a lot of ideas. There were a lot of a big picture of what was going on, but she had more of an understanding of like what was happening in the war and more opinions on it rather than just like trying to survive. Like if Grave of Fireflies has a fault, like it's not about what was going on during World War II as in this corner of the world was.
Yeah, in this corner of the world, technically speaking, she had a nice house, she had a family around her and stuff, and she knew exactly what was going on in the war. Like, everything should have been okay and looked fine from the outside, but it dealt with a lot of small aspects about, at first you start hearing that they're low on food, that they're low on rations, and then it's like there's literally not enough to eat, like people are starving, so she has to go out and forage stuff. And it still has this air of like, everything is okay, even though it's gone to shit and she's probably just not admitting it to her family. Yeah,
I feel like a lot of the familial relationships are interesting in this film too. And another thing to focus on, but like she goes to her husband's family and she has no idea who these people are. She has to deal with like a bitchy sister-in-law and like all these different things. And she uses her intuition to learn how to like cook things really well. So they eat like dandelion leaves and she makes like Ronin rice that tastes like shit and a bunch of this stuff. And it was like a really good showcase of what was going on. She also goes to town and meets like a prostitute and meets like all these different people. It's a lot
of little things that it's like...
It's not just a kid taking care of his sister, which I get is compelling and emotional, but it's not as interesting to me as this film.
I don't think so. In this corner of the world has a lot of stuff, just like it deals with a lot of things that I didn't know about personally. Like the firebombing, I didn't know was a thing that happened.
No, me neither.
Before this movie, and then when I saw it, I was like, "There's no way the Americans did that."
Oh yeah, they were fucking shitty, bro.
Yeah, you look it up, and it's like, oh, they literally just drove planes over and dumped flaming garbage on people's houses just to burn down city blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And the prostitute, especially the prostitute scene, was like, it wasn't handled in such a way where it was in your face. It's like, here's a child prostitute. This is a child prostitute. It was like Suzu meets this girl who she just starts talking to because she's lost in the city. And then the girl just mentions like, you don't want to come back here. Soldiers are coming in. And then the woman that owns the brothel house is like, come on, we've got guests. And she just runs in. And it's like, wait a sec. That was a total kid that she was talking to. And she's gonna go service those men. And it's handled really, really, like, I don't know what the proper word is.
Matter-of-factly?
Yeah, it's just kind of, this is what's happening, and get used to it. It's not really getting any better.
I felt like in this corner of the world, because of all those elements, it's also more of like a horrific...
It was, in my opinion. I remember the bad shit in this corner of the world way more because it was... Everything almost went... well in this corner of the world. Everything almost went very well, except for like one or two scenes where I'm like, Jesus Christ, I still remember them every time I start watching that movie.
Well, there's also this intense tension that's like hanging over the film because we know what happens in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
You keep seeing the timeline come up,
and she keeps going back and forth, and we're like, "Fuck! Just don't go there for whatever day it was. Like, don't go over there for the fucking bomb, please. Like, don't be there." And that hangs over the film. And the way that, like, Grave of the Fireflies doesn't deal with
It doesn't deal with the actual bomb dropping, which is really surprising because it's a movie based around World War II. It deals with the aftermath.
It's such an intense like societal drama, like not drama, it's societal trauma that it's weird. The Grave of Fireflies didn't touch about it. I guess it was about two characters in wartime, and they weren't near the bomb, so whatever. Yeah. But the scenes in this corner of the world, right? Because I had seen these scenes on YouTube. I don't know what film it was, but it was literally like an anime about like characters in like Hiroshima like being bombed and like exploding and turning into like bone fragments and stuff, and it was horrific. So I didn't know if that was in Grave of the Fireflies or this film, if it was going to be, but it wasn't. But those clips, I don't remember if it was some, but those clips are horrible. But I think like in this corner of the world, like what happens around Hiroshima was almost worse because
it's a lot of just
Suzu and her sister are just, or her sister-in-law are just sitting in the house, and then they feel this shock wave.
Oh, I
like,
fucking hate that scene.
What was that? And they look over and they see this huge mushroom cloud in the distance in Hiroshima, and then they just like, they don't know what's going on. They can't get anything on the radio. You wouldn't even have a concept
of it. You wouldn't even be able to imagine what just happened.
Yeah.
That scene is chilling to me. They're kind of just, and this is after weeks of like, honey, at 3 a.m., time for your daily air raid. And at a certain point, the characters are like, I don't even care. They're not coming anymore. Just go back to bed.
Yeah, they were like, they had air raids like 3 times a day, like in the middle of the night and shit. And they'd go inside the air bunker and stuff. And they would like try to hide from them. And at some point, they're like, just fuck it. We're just staying in the house. Who cares? And they just
There's too many. Fuck it. Yeah. It's, so after multiple weeks of that shit, they're kind of doing their own stuff. They're doing laundry or whatever they're doing. And the screen, like, it gives me chills just thinking about it. The screen just flashes, like, pitch white and just illuminates the room you're watching it in for a sec. And then they feel the shake and they kind of look around. They're like, that was weird. What was that? And yeah, they look over to where Hiroshima is and it's just a mushroom cloud. And they're like, that's a weird looking cloud. Like, what was that? And then they turn to the radio stations, and it's just silent in every direction. I hate that so fucking much.
A lot of the stuff that was foreshadowing that, too, because that's not the only horrific thing that happens in this film.
Not at all.
Because Suzu has, like, not a daughter-in-law. Yeah,
daughter-in-law. That's the sister's kid,
a niece-in-law, like a niece. And she's walking her one day... And they get inside this bomb shelter and they come out or whatever. And then they come across this unexploded bomb. And then she doesn't know what it is. But she walks by it. And the kid's like, what's this? And then she remembers that like when unexploded bombs fall on the ground, like they like plow in. And then all the dirt falls on top of them. Like, that's what this is. And then she tries to reach for her. And then the bomb goes off and kills the kid. And blows her fucking like hand and arm off.
Yeah, like... This movie has, I think the animation style does a lot for it. This movie is beautifully animated, and everyone has this childlike appearance to them. They all look very serene and calm. And I remember when I first watched that movie, that scene, I was like, holy shit, her fucking arm's just missing. It's just obliterated, and that kid's gone. Yeah.
Really bad. And I think that, like, Grave of the Fireflies has that scene with the mother, right? Where the mother, like, you don't see her get burned, but you see her, like, at the bandages and get thrown in the big body pit.
Yes.
But, like, there's a scene in this corner of the world, right? Where it's after Hiroshima, and Suzu goes to Hiroshima with her husband, and then she's like, maybe we should help with this, like, cleanup or whatever. And she's just talking. And then there's a scene that goes on where this kid's with his mom, and then the bomb goes off, and then his mom's arm is blown off, but she's like, she doesn't get help. She's like dripping blood, and she's covered in glass. And then he like sits with his mom, and his mom dies. She gets bloated and covered with flies, and then she just walks around and then climbs into Suzu's arms, and then she takes him over, whatever. But like that whole sequence was 10 times as fucked and effective as anything in Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah. Did you notice that kid totally was under the impression from shell shock and shit that was his mom?
That was his mom. That Suzu was his mom.
Yeah, she was missing the same arm, the same hand and everything. That scene's disgusting. Like, it's obviously moments after the bomb just dropped, and they were probably not in Hiroshima, obviously, but on the outskirts of it. And his mom is just obliterated. Like, she's dying before she starts to walk, and she walks somewhere and just sits down and just dies. Hellish. And then the other thing that touches on that's interesting as much as it is fucking horrific is when Suzu goes back to Hiroshima, she gets approached by like half a dozen people that think that she is someone from the city that they know, like their kid or their mom or their sister and shit.
That scene was fucking awful for me to watch. Did I tell you why when I was there?
Tell me, Jimbo.
So I had this woman who like helped raise me when I was a kid. She was basically my babysitter, but I'd go over to her house like almost every day after school and like during school and shit, and sometimes on the weekends. And there was this time, this is a personal story. There was this time where like I was walking around and I hadn't seen her in like probably 4 or 5 years. And I walked by her house and I was like, fuck, I'm too scared to go in, so I'm not going to go in.
Yeah. And
then 2 weeks later, she died.
Jesus.
And like after that, for like a couple months, every time I go downtown and like walk around, I'd see her face and other people's faces. So I'm definitely not saying that like what my experience is the same thing, but definitely like that kind of happened to me when I was looking around at people and shit like that. So I was like, oh my fucking God, like that's awful. I hate that.
Yeah. This movie uses those scenes very, very specifically and very effectively, in my opinion. Like, I've watched In This Corner of the World a couple times, and there's still those scenes that I dread watching.
I like also that In This Corner of the World touches upon Japanese culture a lot more than in the Grave of Fireflies does. Because the Grave of Fireflies is like, it's kind of like, oh, familial structure, like cultural things, like cultural food and cultural practices and stuff like that. But like, I think the most apt thing to say about In This Corner of the World in terms of Japanese culture is like, after the bombings and then Japan like surrenders to America, like Suzu and everyone is so fucking pissed off. They were like,
oh yeah, I find that
they're
so
like,
interesting.
They're like, what the fuck was all that for? Like, why did we go through all that goddamn horse shit just to surrender? Like, we want to fight to the last man.
Yeah.
Like, fuck everyone else. Fuck this. And I was like, holy shit.
I found that really interesting. I forget what it was called, but there were names for groups of Japanese citizens like that were like, why did we surrender? Like, you might as well fight until everyone's dead. I've already lost pretty much all my family, and now we surrender for absolutely no reason. Yeah, it's a rough movie. The other thing that they start to happen near the end is just get American propaganda dropped all over the city asking for their surrender, and she starts collecting it as toilet paper.
Yeah, she literally wipes her ass with it.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Jim, you also brought it up when we were watching it, which is, I'm glad no other countries we've really seen, to my knowledge, that are as big as in the Western world as Japan would be. But we haven't really seen another country bounce back from an atomic attack like that and see the after effects.
There hasn't really been like an atomic attack on that scale ever since, like before or since.
Yeah, you really got to see what has happened to Japan to see the after effects of it and how they've changed because of it. And it's horrendous, don't get me wrong, but it's also just a very interesting cultural tonal shift of how that happened. Because like that wasn't long ago. Like people could be like, yeah, my grandparents got obliterated.
That was less than 80 years ago.
Yeah.
There were tons of people alive today who are alive back then.
Yeah. I just can't even imagine it. I can't imagine looking over the mountains because it's a mountainous region and being like, what is that cloud? Let's turn to the radio station. Just static. And it's like, I can't phone people because all the phone lines are dead.
When she was talking to her niece, she said they were talking about clouds, and she was like, that's an anvil cloud. Like, that's good to say that heavy rain and a storm's coming. And the mushroom cloud in the movie looks just like that anvil cloud. I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah, this movie uses a lot of imagery like that. They talk about the waves and stuff as white rabbits going, and when they start to lose the war, she's like, I'm never looking at the white rabbits again after this, and they start seeing ships wash up and fish dead from the atomic attack.
Well, she has all these touchstones too, where she has a friend who is like in the Navy.
Yes, she has a lot of you can really paint a picture of her life, which I like.
Her husband's in the court martial office too, and can you just imagine the kind of horrendous shit he would have seen like every day, like going to work and shit? Holy fuck-a-roni.
Yeah, this movie does have moments of levity, trust me. I like when she's painting the ocean view she sees and the military police walk up to her and they're like, she's a goddamn spy. Why is she painting our formations of ships? And she gets berated for like 6 hours in her family house with all of the family around her. And then the military police leave and they all laugh at her because the military police thought she'd be smart enough to be a spy.
They're like, she's too fucking dumb. Who
she's
cares?
She's too stupid to be a spy. You can just draw on this.
I really like looking at all these horrific scenes of like America dropping like burning rods and like bombs and stuff. There's this really good video I think you should watch, Dan. It's by a YouTube guy called Sean, and he did a video about like why America didn't have to drop the atomic bomb. They literally just did it to like expedite the end of like the conflict and to just test the bomb basically on the other. And it's truly horrific, and I think that everyone listening and you, Dan, should go and watch it. But Yeah, just like a bunch of shit that should have never happened. I hate war.
I hope it will never ever happen again. It's just fucked. Like, how many people died at Hiroshima and stuff? Like 70,000 people almost gone.
How
in the
many
blink of an eye.
non-combatants died in Hiroshima?
Yeah.
How many hundreds of thousands of non-combatants died of sickness after Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Like, yeah, just fucked. Why is Nagasaki viewed as... Do you know? If you don't, that's fine. But we know Hiroshima so much more. Nagasaki, was it not to as big of a scale?
I think I don't know for sure, but I just know that Hiroshima was the first.
Okay.
And then the Hiroshima was the first, right? And this
Yeah,
was
yeah,
fucked
I
part.
believe so.
Where Hiroshima happened and Japan, I think, was going to surrender. And then US was like, nope, not fast enough, and dropped another one.
So fucked. Just
Hey.
so fucked.
Hey, I'm going to say this, and I think most Americans would agree. Hey, America, I would say 99% of the rest of the world doesn't like your government, including everyone around you and the rest of the world. Including most of America, so you should fix that shit eventually.
Nah, have you seen $5 footlongs in America, though? McDonald's, gas prices, Hardee's.
Big cheeseburger.
Big cheeseburger.
Yeah.
What do you think is next for America? Do you think their empire's done? Like, what do you think in 100 years America's going to look like? I'm going to be roving the wasteland with my Dinky D and my car with a harpoon gun on it.
Truly, I think that America will turn into like a Britain where they're just like kind of the same and shitty and no one gives a fuck.
I could see that.
But anyway, like final thoughts on Grave of Fireflies v In This Corner of the World. What do you think? Which one do you think is the better film?
I think, obviously, if you've been listening, In This Corner of the World, to me, is a much better film, but I think they handle topics so different. The only thematic things that are the same is the war. It handles the general topic of World War II, but they both handle them in such a different way. It's not a huge comparison between movies. I just think In This Corner of the World lets you get a better picture for the people, and you see... Obviously, like... How do I phrase this?
I think it's a more interesting film.
Yeah, me too. The bombs dropping and the death is like the base level of the horrors of war. You see all the other stuff in This Corner of the World where it's like all these people aren't soldiers in the slightest, and it's like they're still starving because of rations. The other fucked up thing that you didn't know about was the house foreclosings, where the government was just hey, we need the wood from your house. Get the fuck out of here. And they just tear down your house. That is unfathomable to me. I can't imagine that. Like, yeah, we need the wood from this side of your house. Bro, beat it. Where am I supposed to go? I don't fucking know. You can't stick around, but you don't gotta go home.
Can't stay here. You can. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Literally, I think that is horrendous. But they're both different movies. I'd say watch them both. But In This Corner of the World is much better in my opinion, and it's on Netflix.
I think I would show The Grave of the Fireflies to kids. Like, I think I'd show it
Jim would show it to kids. Clip that. I would show Grave of the Fireflies to kids.
I would, bro. I think that like 10 to 14, that's the kind of age group that would benefit from watching Grave of the Fireflies. And I think 14 plus would more benefit from watching In This Corner of the World, because
it's more nuanced.
Grave of the Fireflies is much more of a personal film. Like, it's much more of a contained, like, emotional story.
Yeah.
Whereas In This Corner of the World is more of like a systematically depressing film.
Yeah, it's not great. I am excited. The author of In This Corner of the World has done some other movies that I really should watch, because I'm sure I'll like them. I really like the style of this movie, and I like the kind of artistic choices of it, and I'm sure I'd like his other movies too.
Is that it? We're done talking about all this?
Talking about happy movies, talking about big, huge, smiling, grinning teeth movies. I think we're done, Jim. I'm excited for what you get to pick next week. It feels like, I don't know why, but I feel energized for this podcast. I feel like it's doing good. The title changes is good. We're switched to Podbean. Feeling good.
We're on the top of the town. Where I'm gonna tear us off of the top of the town. You know why, Dan?
What are we doing? What are we talking about?
I'm picking Joey King films,
Fuck
brother.
off.
We're going to talk about Kissing Booth 1, 2, and 3. We're going to talk about Wish Upon. And we're going to talk about, which we're going to watch for next episode, me and you, Slender Man.
I'm looking at all the movies she's in, and it's like, she was in this movie? Why am I getting this?
Is it starring roles? I don't think she starred in Slender Man. Let me look this up.
She was in Ramona and Beezus.
She was Beezus, bro. She was one of them.
Disgusting. Why is White House Down? Who did she play in White House Down?
She was the fucking
fuck?
like president's daughter or something.
She was the president's daughter, truly.
The Kissing Booth 3 isn't on her filmography. That's weird.
She hides it from the world.
But I think we're gonna watch the horror films and the
100%. We'll do a Joey King extravaganza.
Because truly, like, I think someone told me that she's in a good film or in a good TV show. It's called, like, she was in Fargo, which I enjoy, but she was in another thing that's supposed to be good. I don't know. But I think that she is, like, the weirdest. This is what I'm gonna come into this episode with. This is the energy I want. Is that I don't understand why Joey King is a leading lady, because she can't act. And she can't, do a lot of stuff that a good actress can do. But she ends up as the star of these films, which is very baffling to me.
Yeah. Joey King does a lot of movies that's about underage women having sex, very oddly. The other movie she made was Summer of '03, and it says, 16-year-old Jamie sets out to make the most of her summer and explores her sexuality.
Oh my god, it's her licking a fucking Christmas cone or ice cream cone on the front.
It's just Kissing Booth. Just watch Kissing Booth all day. Tape open your eyes and just play Kissing Booth.
That's what they torture people in Guantanamo Bay with, is play the Kissing Booth films over end. But I think that's it. I think that'll be a nice, good cleanse after talking about the horrors of war in this podcast.
You go from the horrors of war to the horrors of Joey King's cinematic universe.
I think that we're usually a lot more light on what we talk about.
Yeah, this was a dark topic. This was the darkest day.
But it definitely was an interesting podcast to go over and talk about. I'm going to have another glass of wine and a sit and take in all of this goddamn horror.
I'm going to have a big old hot chocolate, and I'm going to shower, and I'm going to watch the new Snowpiercer. That is all from us tonight, folks.
A big wet kiss. How are we coming out with here, Dan? I'm gonna read a postcard that my friend sent to me. Do you want me to read this?
Read this card to me, Jim. Lull me to sleep.
Hello, Jimbo. Please accept this postcard as a token of love and friendship. I know we could all use a little extra love these days. Just a little reminder of how loved you are. You're an awesome dude. Lots of love, my friend.
Jim made that up. He wrote it himself so he could feel better about himself.
I didn't. It's on my desk.
Goodbye.
Good night, darling.
Goodbye, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Dan.
Good night, everybody.